Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin.
And I'm Saki.
And today's episode is, well, there is no real episode. So this issue just comes about naturally, I guess. We kind of, so I guess the way to describe this, if you guys have noticed, we usually have it's been a mess this past couple months. Of like a certain type of revolving schedule of what type of video comes out. Like at the beginning, it was like, I don't know, it was like Adventure Memories or something like that, and then, or no, it was Meal for Two, Games, and then, or Time We're Not Getting Back, Adventure Memories, and then something else. But it was mainly between those three that rotated. And then, what's it called? As time went on, got more messy, you know, things got changed around and all that stuff. And content has, I guess, kind of changed in terms of how we do things. And so now we're at the point where we're kind of running out of things to talk about in terms of like two of the focuses. One being Time We're Not Getting Back, just because very good games are hard to come by. I think you would agree with that.
Oh yeah.
And especially co-op.
Oh yeah, we only play like one game, and that's not even regularly.
Yeah. And so yeah, we don't have much to talk about, so you know, this segment is kind of here to kind of replace that segment in that sense until we get something to talk about. So I also thought about just this episode in particular because I mentioned that I have work now. I'm a person who works a job now, and my commute is like 1 hour minimum average up to 1 hour 30 depending on how lucky I get. And 1 hour drives are not fun in silence. I don't know how people can do that. Just like, you know, drive in pure silence. Like, not silence, but like have nothing to listen to, you know? Can you do that?
I can, but it's kind of difficult too.
Yeah, I feel like I would get sleepy if I were to do that. Like, I would just fall asleep straight up.
For me, after I listen to like my playlist that I like, after that, kind of goes downhill from there.
It's like almost like a, you know, what's it called? A countdown, you know? Oh, this is the last song. Hopefully I get to the location.
Yeah, and sometimes if it's bad, I'll be like, all right, repeat.
Gotta keep myself alive. This is literally my fuel to live. And so my method is, because I know for sure if I keep on listening to songs that like a playlist that I have, I'm gonna eventually get tired of it. I've redone it throughout my school years because I went to school prior to recording art recordings, and you know, school being about 20 to 40-minute drives depending on traffic. Average about 20, just because of the times I went. I was just listening to regular music. That had no issues whatsoever because it's just 20-minute drives. It goes by fast. But 1 hour drives to 1 hour 30, 1 hour, 20, whatever. It feels like a really long time. And so I was like, you know, I'll listen to a podcast. I was never really a podcast guy. Never really was interested in podcasts in the first place. But there happens to be a YouTuber that I occasionally watch. I'm not like I rarely watch YouTubers in the first place. It's just as you get older, I feel like that just happens. Don't you think? Like in terms of content creators, I guess.
Yeah, I would say when we were younger, we definitely watched a lot more YouTube than now.
Yeah.
Definitely died down a lot.
And like, you know, you might say, oh, because you have a job, you have less time, literally. And it's like, no. I mean, even before I had a job, I didn't really watch YouTubers as time went on. But one of the people I usually check up on occasionally for just entertainment at times is a YouTuber by the name of Markiplier. Markiplier is pretty famous for having have done various of things, but not to the point of like everyone knows him or anything like that. But I enjoyed some of his videos. I haven't really watched him in a long time, but I caught wind of him having a podcast, and it being a podcast, of course, I didn't listen to it. I didn't bother checking it out because, again, it's a podcast. I was never interested. But what really started my interest is because there's an episode called Bob's Fridge, because he does a podcast with two other friends, his really close friends, and Oh, by the way, the podcast is called Distractable. Do give it a watch. Just saying it out there. And there's an episode that they did was called Bob's Fridge, and it's literally just about, because one of their names is Bob, one of the friends' name is Bob. It's literally him talking about the entire saga of his fridge, and it's freaking hilarious. It's so freaking hilarious. And it was put in a short video, like not short video film, but it was a 6-minute video. The story's way longer than that. It's like 20 minutes plus for the entire saga. But what Markiplier did was he made an animation out of it. Like, he had someone, he commissioned someone to make an animation out of it. And it was a 6-minute animation video. And it was just so funny. I was like, maybe I'll give it a try. But that was like a year ago. Maybe 2 even. And I never really thought about it since, because again, I never had a reason to watch podcasts, or listen rather. And so time went on, and I finally get my job, and I was like, I remembered about the Distractable podcast, and I was like, why not listen to it? Podcasts are 30 minutes long usually, kind of like our videos. It's just dudes talking about whatever they want to talk about, and I kind of got inspired in this way. I think I remember telling you do you remember before we even made this like whole, the casuals channel and everything, and I was mentioning to you like, and I kind of got inspired by other stuff, and like one of them, I think I might have mentioned, just I listened to a podcast before, and that's why I kind of wanted to do like a podcast type, video format.
Yeah, I remember like before we started, like when we were preparing for it, like maybe a month before we actually started, you did kind of mention very vaguely about a bunch of stuff. And that's probably what you were referring to.
Yeah, I was referring to the time where I had listened to the podcast and I just kept that in mind.
Yeah, like you didn't specify like what you were listening to or anything. You just were like, I got some inspiration for our podcast thing, so let's kind of do stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and so the casual was born, and yeah, this was mainly literally the way we do things is almost like the Distractables. Well, not exactly. They have a whole different format, but like kind of like the way it goes about, what most podcasts are is just, people who get together and talk whatever they want to talk about. And so me remembering the whole Distractable podcast and everything, and recently I started, because I go to work I'm driving to work every day and everything, I listen to them a lot. And the more and more I listen to, the more I kind of got like ideas of what I want to do. Some of them are outright copying their format, And if anyone ever says, hey, you're copying their format, and I would just say, absolutely I did. These guys, made a fantastic format, and I want to copy it. All credit to them, as far as I know. And so one of the things that the way the, I guess, episodes really work is that they have a host, and the host decides a topic, whatever they want, and prior to the episode, they're not told what the topic will be. What the host decides to be, what the topic is. He literally just brings it up, and right then and there, they just start delving into that topic, right? And during the entire time, the host has to decide between the two, because it's mainly between the two people who are not the host that are talking whatever about the subject is, in order to gain what they say is points. And the person who has more points is the winner, and the winner gets to host the next episode. Obviously, we can't do that because we're only 2 people, so it'd just be going back and forth. We would need a third.
If I'm on a win streak, though, you don't stand a chance.
Imagine just declaring yourself a winner every single episode. Like, you didn't say a single word at the very end. I win.
I won. Least amount of words spoken, I win.
Yeah. So obviously we can't copy that format, but I'm more inspired by like the whole like you just bring a topic to the table, right? And that's what I'm kind of doing here. And I guess today's kind of episode is more based on inspiration, right? Inspiration for whatever you want. And so I'm thinking, for the future, and this is kind of like And honestly, you didn't even know about this until literally like maybe 10 minutes ago before we even started recording.
Yeah.
Then I was like, hey, we're gonna change the format.
Yep. Kept in the dark,
Yeah.
baby. Let's go.
Saki is a saint for going along with my fucking whimsical decisions of like literally like a lot of the things that we do are like not do, but a lot of the episodes are literally decided like maybe a day prior on a good day, sometimes an hour before, or sometimes literally right before the recording starts.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Yeah, we're not professionals. I hope whoever reviews this like, man, they're not professional at all. It's like, oh yeah, we're definitely not. It's almost as if we're trying to like, those like how people fantasize making guns, but then they use a freaking rubber band on their fingers, and then they have like the finger pointer as like the aiming, and then the thumb as like the trigger.
Yeah.
Do the rubber band gun. You remember that finger rubber band gun?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's
I had
like-
it backfire too many times.
That's us right here, and it backfires on us, and we're thinking, yeah, we could like totally shoot that, plastic cup down, and it just smacks us in our eye. That's us in a nutshell. So yeah, I got like inspired by that kind of stuff where you just bring a topic. Maybe we'll alternate, right? I bring a topic, and we both talk about it, and then next time we do it, it might happen more frequently just because we're another segment might be less to talk about, so it might be 2 even segments. Who knows? Where we just basically talk, or you bring a topic, I bring a topic, back and forth, and I was thinking maybe we could do that. What do you think?
That sounds like a good idea. I think you should start first because it takes forever for me to think of topics.
Yeah. And yeah, so I guess it's easily decided, right? Today's topic will be inspiration. Do you like? I'll give you some time to think about in terms of what inspires you, or something that inspired you in the past and that made you go towards a goal, or like whatever inspired you to not do something or do something in the future, and whether or not it worked out, or didn't. So I'll tell you a really dumb story of mine. I never told anyone this story, by the way. No one knows about this. You like even you don't know about this. This would be the first person I talk to about this entire ordeal. So buckle up. This story is like it ends in a catastrophic failure, right? And it's not even like a catastrophic failure in the way that I tried. It just ends in a failure before I could even try.
You already got my interest.
So, this was back in, I want to say 2010-ish, 2011, I want to say, so about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. I was around 12 years old, 13 years old-ish, or 11. And during this time, I had my own computer. I was very spoiled, to be honest, in that sense. I had my own laptop, rather, not computer. I used a laptop. And I used to browse YouTube a lot, and being exposed to the internet, this was kind of like the rise of K-pop. This was when Girls' Generation was really popular in Korea, when Super Junior was taking over Asia. This was like the old school, like what we would call the first gen, or rather second generation of K-pop groups, right? Do you remember some of those names? Like, do you happen to know some of those names that I mentioned, like Super Junior, Girls' Generation, Brown Eyed Girls, Wonder Girls?
Yeah, I remember. I don't know Brown Eyed Girls, but I knew all other group names, and that was like what 2012, I want to say.
Yeah, 2012. This is when they started like getting super popular. I would say 2007 was more of like their actual start, and
But it didn't get popular here in the States.
yeah,
till,
it didn't until 2012. Yeah, you're right. But because I had access to the internet, I knew, and I was really enamored with K-pop, right? And so I was like, I looked at, a lot of K-pop stuff. I wasn't like to the point where I was like obsessed with K-pop people, I'm not like those crazy fans, or, if you're watching this, don't kill me. But like, I just really liked K-pop in terms of, it was really fascinating and fun. To be what you would call an idol, and being able to sing, dance, at the same time while giving a performance as a group. That's really difficult. either one of those two things are difficult. Trying to do them both is even more difficult, right? And then you have to add in another factor that you're doing it with multiple other people at once to coordinate a performance. That is insanely difficult, right?
Very. Yeah, I can't do a sing or dance, and I don't think you'd want to hear or see it. So,
So, I was like, wow, they're amazing, right? They're on the screen, and then like, during that time, the whole K-pop thing was really idolized. Like, there were idols, but like in the verbal sense, they were idolized. They lived what seemed to be like a true not glamorous, but like, exciting life, if I had to describe it, right? They're all doing all these performances, they're going on all these shows, they're participating in activities, they're, doing, some of them are doing brand deals, some of them are acting in dramas, right? So it looked like their life was exciting. Not no one, rather, but in particular, a lot of outsiders outside of Korea would look at this and be like, wow, that's really cool. But you don't really know the kind of the darkness that's underneath, in terms of like, this is not exclusive to Korea, but just rather the entertainment industry in general. There's a lot of dark stuff that goes on there. But because you're an outsider, you have no idea what's going on. You just think it's all bright and sparkly, right?
Yep, they keep you in the dark on that on purpose.
Yeah. And so I was one of those people who was, kept in the dark, woefully ignorant of all the, shady stuff that happens in, entertainment industry. Not just exclusive to K-pop, once again. It's really just the entirety of entertainment industry, no matter where you look. And so I was like, yeah, I really like K-pop, right? I was like, I can, it's like I really wanted to live an exciting life, because during that time I was not liked during my school, like junior high and elementary school. Like, I was kind of like that kid who, the chubby kid no one really wanted to interact with. That was me. So K-pop was really kind of like that outlet for me to like kind of be almost happy in that sense. And so one day, after being inspired by so many K-pop videos and everything, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna become a K-pop star. From an outside perspective, that's really dumb. If you were to look at this right now, you'd be like, oh, there goes Jin, doing some kid stuff, like, having that kid Wonderland dream. Super unrealistic, But during that time, I was like so inspired, so convinced that I would become a K-pop star. I would be one of the very few people who would become a foreigner to become a K-pop star, right? Because there was at this point maybe two or three foreigners who were like truly foreigners that were K-pop, like in the K-pop, and made it successfully, quote unquote successfully, in the K-pop world, right? And so I was like, I'm gonna be the next one. I was so inspired, right? And I looked at myself and I was like, what do I have? What do I have to become a K-pop star? Singing? Nah. I was in puberty. My voice was cracking all the time. I had nothing for singing. I was like, okay. I was like, singing, okay. I can't do that. Can I do dancing? Absolutely not. I'm a terrible dancer, and I still am. And despite me having the quote-unquote objective view of myself, saying that, I'm not so, like, because I say this, like, I absolutely am terrible. And when I was that age, I was like, I can sing, maybe. Like, I'm not the greatest. I can improve, surely, once I start training, right? When I become, accepted as a K-pop trainee. Dancing, I can move my body. That doesn't mean I can dance, but, like, I can learn, like, that's what K-pop training is for, right? It's like, surely I can, become a K-pop star. I was like, I was thinking to myself, I got a chance. For some reason, I was so convinced that I had a chance to become a K-pop star. Neglecting the fact that, one, I had no idea how to even become a K-pop trainee. Two, I had no skills whatsoever to even back up, to even be accepted as a K-pop training. And three, I didn't know the language at that time. I didn't know Korean at the time. So, despite, these three, what you call minor setbacks, I was like, absolutely, I can do it. I have a good chance. There'll be so amazed by me, right? And you know what's so dumb about this even more, Saki?
What's the heck?
The reason why I was so convinced I could do it was because one of the dudes who, one of the foreigner dudes, right? He's Korean technically, but he was born in America, born and raised in America, right? The reason why he became a K-pop star was because he got kind of dragged along in like a K-pop audition in America, like somewhere in America. He got dragged along, right? And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm not really here to become a K-pop star, right? And it wasn't just K-pop auditions they were doing, right? They were accepting other ones like, actors, models, and all that type of, like MCs, like that kind of auditions they were holding. But K-pop just happens to be the biggest focus during that time. But there were other, auditions during that time. And he was like, I'm gonna do the model, audition because I have no interest in K-pop. Why would I do it, right? Seems logical. He's like, I might as well just do model because I got dragged along, I don't care. And so he does the model walkway. He doesn't take it seriously. He does some kind of joke, right? Like he does like a pose, whatever, a funny pose, and then like he leaves. Didn't expect much, and then suddenly he got a call back saying, hey, we want you to audition for it, like, we want you to go further in the audition for a K-pop group. And he's like, sure, I guess, right? And so he became a K-pop star later on. And so I was like thinking to myself, if he can do that, I can surely get it. That was my only justification for being even having a chance. It's because that man did a model, runway, and he got accepted for whatever reason, right? And, he looks he's really handsome, good looking dude, right?
I was about to say he's got one thing we don't have. He's good looks.
He's good looking, he's already aged, I don't know how he exactly looked like when he auditioned, because it was a long time ago when he auditioned, right? When he was a teenager. But I was just like, but I neglected also the fact that I didn't look good. But yet I still thought I had a chance.
That optimism.
I had so much optimism. Maybe it was kind of like maybe you can view it as almost like in a sad way, because like I really had no friends during that time. I felt like an outcast, and so this was my really only outlet. So it's almost kind of like that false hope, clinging on to that false hope. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, we pretty much lived the same life.
And so I was so convinced, and I was like, all right, how am I gonna audition? So I look up stuff on the internet, and I find out that one of the companies called SM Entertainment had an office in Los Angeles, and I couldn't find anything about the auditions like dates, because later on I found out, but that they hold auditions at very specific days or times periods, and they don't hold auditions anymore, right? But on their website they didn't do that. They just said audition, come on audition, whenever, like, and then they just like, yeah, come on audition, open door, kind of almost like an open door. They didn't word it exactly like an open door, but like it was just the way it was worded, it almost made it seem like open door, right? So I talked to my mom and dad, and I was like, I really want to become a K-pop star. And them being parents, like, well, they're in their mind, they're like, this dumbass is never gonna become a K-pop star, But on the outside, they're like, oh yeah, it's like, oh yeah, do you have a plan? Like, do you know where do you want to start? And I was like, yeah, the SM Entertainment building is in Los Angeles, And so I was like, yeah, can you take me there, so I can audition right away? And they're like, right away, right? And they're, they're being kind parents. They're indulging in my, nonsense. Because, they're chubby kid spouting out nonsense, saying that, oh, I want to be a K-pop star. I had nothing to give for it. Like, even they know, despite me being their child, right? They kind of indulge. Like, yeah. It's like, next time you go, it's like, yeah, we'll have to see about it, right? And so, they forgot about it, because obviously they weren't gonna actually take me to LA just to like try and audition for a K-pop audition, in LA, because we live far away from there. And I think for a while I was like, oh, I kind of mentioned one off and off, like, oh, I want a K-pop audition, this and that, whatever. And then, so I was like, well, I guess they're not going to take me, and I kind of forgot about it until later. My mom and dad had to do something in LA, and they were like, hey, we're going to go to LA. Do you want to try going to that, SM Entertainment building in order to try audition for a K-pop? I was like, yeah, I was so excited, right? So like the 1 hour, whatever ride there, I was so excited, I was like ready, like I was hyping myself. I was like, I can do this. think about all the potential things they can ask me, right? You know, my name, what skills I have. I have none, but I'm sure I could pass it anyways. You know, think about what potential things they can do. Like I had looked up, like I had seen like videos about the actual K-pop people talking about what they did in order to the audition process. You know, I remember all that. You know, I was so hyped. I was hyping myself up, and so they finally took care of the business, and they're like, okay, you know, and then they drove to the SM Entertainment, and I was like really hyped. I was like, yeah, I can totally imagine myself becoming a K-pop star now. Like I was already thinking miles ahead. Like I was thinking about what I was gonna do once I won an award. You know, I was thinking to myself when I was gonna go solo. You know, when I was gonna earn all this money, right? And mind you, I'm like 10, 11, or 12. I don't remember, like 11 or 13, between those ages, right? And we finally arrive. I'm like, all right, game face on. We get out. And I forgot to tell you, well, I didn't forget to tell you, rather, I didn't tell you on purpose, that this was on a Saturday. And by the time my parents finished their business, it was around 5 to 6 p.m. So when I got to the door, I walk up to the main entrance of the building, and over there it says, closed. And I was heartbroken. I was like, but my audition! How can they close? I was prepared and everything. You know, they won't accept me. And then I go to my mom and dad. I was so depressed. I'm like, they're closed. You know, they're not gonna accept me. My dream is over. You know, it's no longer like. For some reason, I thought it was just over. Like, legitimately, that was my one chance, and it's gone. I had no chance whatsoever after that. Like, literally, that was my one chance. My one, like, you know, 1 in a million, 1 in a lifetime type deal, and it was gone. And I was so sad. And so my mom and dad were like, oh, well, gotta get in the car. We had to go home. And I was just like, okay. And then as we go home, right, we finally got in the car, you know, we drive away. You know, I'm all depressed, like, super sad. And, you know, all the dreams I had of becoming a K-pop star, all the visions I had, all the things that I was gonna do, gone, eviscerated into thin air, right? And we finally get home, and, you know, I'm super sad again. Go home, I, you know, eat dinner sadly, go to bed sadly. And then next day, you know, feeling kind of depressed. And I felt kind of depressed for like a week, right? And then it was until that I had that kind of like post-clarity, you know? Where you're like, you just suddenly like realize everything.
Like an epiphany?
Yeah, epiphany. And I was thinking to myself, right after that, I was like, man, what the fuck was I thinking? I was like, man, I'm stupid for thinking I could even become a K-pop star. And you know how this epiphany came about?
What was how?
It was one day on a weekend I woke up, and you know those rooms that have like a sliding mirror? Because I have one in my room right now. You know those sliding mirrors?
Yeah.
And I had one during that time when I was in that house. And I look at myself, I'm like, damn, I do not look good. And I then had the epiphany. I'm like, wait a minute. Why on earth did I think I even had a chance to becoming a K-pop star when I look like this? And so for like the whole day, I was like, oh my god, I'm so dumb for thinking this. Why on earth did I even beg my mom and dad to take me to the SM Entertainment? And I was thinking to myself, thank god they were closed, or else I would have gotten traumatized by like the verbal beating I would have gotten from like what, even if I'm pretty sure they didn't even have auditions during that time. So I would have just been like the employee there, right, that just happens to be working there, doesn't, you know, has nothing to do with the audition, would have just been like, what's this kid doing trying to look for an audition?
Yeah, you know that meme of that Asian guy slamming the shoe on the floor, yelling emotional damage?
Yeah.
That's probably what would have happened to you.
Yeah. So after that, I literally had the epiphany. I was just like, oh my god, I'm so dumb. And so there you have it. That was my story of being inspired to become a K-pop star and utterly failed before I could even start.
Hopefully optimistic. We should title it that way.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my story. Do you have any? It doesn't. You don't need to have a story, but do you just happen to have any story where you were inspired by something and you were like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and like what the results were?
I think, well, it has nothing to do with K-pop. I'll tell you that. But as a, well, still technically now too, I grew up with, you know, a lot of headaches, migraines. and my dad used to go to a chiropractor because he had back issues and all that kind of stuff, and I had a lot of neck issues,
Yeah.
probably because I slept funny most of the time in a weird position.
Yeah.
So I would go too, and the chiropractor would adjust my neck, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels so much better, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a chiropractor because this makes me feel so much better. It breaks up all the knots in your neck, and you just feel more loose and free.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna be a chiropractor. And so that was my goal. When I grew up, I wanted to be a chiropractor.
Yeah.
And then I hit junior high, and I realized how much you had to study anatomy for being a chiropractor and stuff. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not happening.
He just saw the amount of effort that it required, and he was just like, nope.
Yep, they're like, because I did okay in school. I wasn't the greatest or the worst, but I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And then my parents are like, yeah, you gotta go, get your doctorate and stuff. And I'm like, I have to go through more school? I'm like, no thanks.
Damn. I think everyone has that kind of stuff, or like that kind of like experience in their life where they like it's not directly inspiration, but it's more like almost aspiration rather. Where they want to become something and then they realize it's just not for them.
Yeah.
Technically you are inspired by, something in order to make you want to do that kind of career or, hobby or something like that. And it turns out a lot of the times you're not cut out for it. And this is I would say a lot of the time is because, well, in your case it wasn't, but like in my case especially, the way media presents it to you is a large part of, showing only the good parts in terms of like a job or like, a hobby or anything like that. Social media itself really only displays the good part. It doesn't really talk about the bad parts. And even if they do, it's not really talked about because no one wants to look at an article that talks about all the depressing things whatever like a job entails, right? No one wants to see that. So obviously that doesn't generate enough views or traffic. So you only end up seeing the good ones.
Except the news.
Yeah, except the news. That's a whole different story. But so yeah, like, a lot of people get misled on what goes into like, what goes into either a job or work or hobby, and we both learned firsthand experience one way or the other. One, I think, less embarrassing than the other.
Well, that was just one of my one of my things I wanted to try to do as a child when I grew up.
Dude,
There were many more. So.
We should totally talk about that for like another episode where we just talk about childhood like dreams, and then them being utterly crushed. maybe, yeah. But this was an episode. I really had fun, talking about this subject and me unveiling my very, very embarrassing story. That thankfully no one else other than my parents have witnessed. Maybe my sister. I hope not. God.
Can you imagine you're at the dinner table and she just brings that up? You just bolt out of there as fast as you can.
I would not want to be in the same room of that story. But
don't even own a house. You're just like, yeah, I left the oven on, and you just walk out. And your parents are like, I don't have a house. What oven?
That's our house, first of all.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we'll do more video formats of this, and maybe this will be the most reoccurring segment of the video formats. I have no idea. Who knows?
I do have those questions still.
Oh.
The question segments.
Oh yeah, we do. You do, yeah.
And let me tell you, you know how I said around had 150?
Yeah.
It grew.
Of course.
I now have 166.
Soon it'll be 200. We'll get to 200 by the end of the year. I'm sure.
Oh, I might get to 200 by the end of October. Who knows?
But yeah, unfortunately this has to be we're getting to the end of the episode, like time for the end of the episode. So I'll end it off here. So I'm Jin.
And I'm Saki.
And this is the Casuals, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.